কেমন আছেন সবাই? এই যে এখন বিকেল বেলা, তো সবাই তো ফুটবল খেলা দেখেছেন, আর্জেন্টিনা জিতে গিয়েছে। তো কে কে আর্জেন্টিনা করেন একটু জানাবেন।
Morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us once again. Welcome back. We just talked about the Dragonfly full MRI body scan. So this morning, we've got some guests joining us to talk more about it. We have Joe Beverly, our Dragonfly scan patient. You heard his personal story. And Faith and Robert Shields, these are the owners of this technology and this company that's really expanding all over. So thank you all for being here.
Yeah, thanks for
Nice
having
to
us.
see
Yeah.
you. We really enjoyed sharing stories and talking through all of this. And Joe, in the story that we just watched, you talked about the months of the fatigue and the frustration that you were feeling. And so your wife came across an Instagram post about this scan.
Instagram post and just said, let's try this. Let's go. She did a whole bunch of research into Dragonfly and scheduled the appointment, and here we are.
And it's not something that you had necessarily thought about, just saying, let's have an MRI look at my whole system.
No, I was more or less going from doctor to doctor, trying to see what was going on.
Okay, one thing that we didn't manage to get into the story was the story about your father and how key played into this. So you ended up having, and you have, this pretty rare blood disease, correct?
Correct.
And so it's adding too much iron to your blood. And so you just know that you have to turn that around. You give blood every single week.
I do right now.
And are you also on treatments?
No, the only treatment right now is the phlebotomy.
Okay,
Phlebotomy.
so you're just giving blood, and when you look at your symptoms, you say you're thinking maybe this could have helped your dad.
Yes, when I sat back and reflected and looked back at my symptoms, they kind of synced up with what he had going on. And if he would have had this opportunity, I think it would have been a different outcome.
Yeah, because it wasn't a good quality of life. I mean,
No.
that you just experienced.
Yeah, and it was a slow decline for him as well. So
Okay.
it could have changed a lot of things.
Okay, so Robert Faith, it's difficult when you see a story like this to think, well, what are the cons to all of this? And we did mention that major medical groups say that there's this risk of false positives and anxiety. How do you address that criticism?
Well, I mean, I think that, you have to know what's going on inside of you. I think that that's shifting. We get a lot of referrals from doctors. We're seeing a lot of physicians, referring people to us. You just have to know what's going on. You can't just operate out of fear and say, I'm not going to get it done because what if there's a false positive? There's just been so many people that we've helped change their quality of life, give them more time. I think that, but there's a huge shift.
Yep.
in
You've said that you think that this is where medicine is headed. We talked about the cost because this is not covered by insurance, so from $1,000 up to about $2,500 based on exactly what areas you're getting scanned. And Faith, for somebody who's interested in this, maybe they're on the fence, walk us through what the process is. I went through the process. It was very, very quick. 45 minutes.
Yeah,
You're
it's
going to get into
super-
the machine.
Yeah, so it's super simple. You'll we'll get your intake form. You'll do a pre-consultation phone call with our medical providers. You'll come in for your scan. You're in the machine for 45 to 25 minutes, depending on what scan you choose. After that, your results are guaranteed within 5 days. We typically turn them around in 72 hours. And that's it. You get another phone call to have a in-depth post-consultation phone call with the medical provider to go over your results. So yeah, it's a super easy process, and I feel like if you're in the
watch TV.
yeah, you can watch TV.
I did
or
watch a show.
That's
I
true.
watched Netflix. That was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, so if you're worried about being in there for an extended period of time, it's actually a great time to unwind and take a little nap.
Okay, and we're going to show the video of me getting in there as well. What I found interesting about this, and the good news is that nothing major was found, they didn't see any big tumors or anything problematic happening, is that this really plays into my love for preventative medicine, because when I had that follow-up call and I looked through those results, what I was hearing was, here's what we're seeing in your spine. As you get older, this is something we see in a lot of people. Think about spine health. Think about keeping your core really strong so that you don't end up with degenerative disc disease. Just some of the little things like that. So some of it is for that as well, not just looking for massive problems, but thinking about how to age and
There's a
keeping
ton
your
of
health span.
benefits.
Yes,
Ton of
definitely. Yeah,
benefits.
we're going to look at brain health, so early onset dementia, white matter on the brain, and with those results and what we find, you can have a different quality of life by preparing and eating better or taking supplements and rather than a faster decline. So, the information that the MRI is going to give you is, knowledge is power. And so I feel like everybody should come in for a scan.
Okay, and you all are doing this huge expansion.
Yes, yep. we're
Many
super
more
excited.
states,
Yes,
and we're going to see you a lot more in Houston.
yes, that's
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
we have a new location under construction here.
Yep. We're
Okay.
going to be opening right here on
Yeah,
59
we'll
in
be
Kirby, so we're super excited about that. We're going to be opening Katy as well. And we're coming to Oklahoma. We're going to be opening Atlanta and Florida and New York very soon. So
It's
yeah.
booming. It's
Yes,
booming.
it is.
Okay, Faith, Robert, Joe, thank you all for coming in and
Yes,
sharing
thank
your
you so
stories.
much.
Cheetah, it's called Dragonfly because the dragonfly sees like 360 degrees. It has this incredible vision.
Yes.
Much like your weather radar.
stop it. Oh, yes.
A solar company quoted me over $100,000 to put solar and battery on my house. I did it for about a quarter of that cost. Let me show you what I can run. Not only is it running the whole house, but it's also powering this heat bit Bitcoin miners. This is actively making me Bitcoin right now directly from solar. And it helps run my 3D print farm, which is part of my business. But it's also charging up my Rivian SUV. So I'm making money with Bitcoin, I'm charging my electric vehicle, and my house no longer has an electricity bill while running it like this. So I'm going to show you exactly how I did it, what I purchased, how I connected to my house. There's nothing illegal about this, and this is something you can do too. But just so you can grasp this idea, there are actually 3 ways to go solar most commonly. The first is the most expensive, but is the easiest. And that is to call up your local solar company, or maybe they knock on your door, and you sign up for solar with them. I called the local solar company, and that's where they quoted me over $100,000. But there's zero involvement. They do all the permitting, they do all the installing, they do all the paperwork. You pretty much just have to provide the house. Option 2 is the most affordable, but also the hardest to do. And that's where you do a full DIY system. You buy the inverter, you buy the batteries, you buy the racking, and you install everything. You're pulling the permits, you're fixing everything that doesn't pass inspection. It's all up to you, and it's the biggest headache, the cheapest. And then option 3, which is kind of the Goldilocks setup, because it's medium difficulty and medium price. And that's specifically what I'm running here right now, and that's using a solar generator or power station to run everything. And to make this work, you really have to buy the right solar generator. So which one is the right one? There are really 4 main brands that come to mind when I think of solar generators. First would be Anchor Solix, then Jackery, then Bluetti, and then of course EcoFlow. But of those brands, there's only one of them that can truly run everything seamlessly. And that's with EcoFlow using the Delta Pro Ultra X. It's nothing against the other brands at all. What really makes the Delta Pro Ultra X stand apart is that it has a 12,000 watt inverter, 10,000 watts of solar input, and a really high battery expandability. But there are 2 or 3 flaws you need to be aware of. There are fixes for these flaws, but you wouldn't want to buy any system without knowing these first. So let me show you how I'm running my house. So the whole brains and heart of the system is the EcoFlow Delta Pro Ultra X. This top section is the inverter. It only has 2 120 volt outlets, but then it also has 2 240 volt outlets. I'm running off of the 50 amp plug just using this big cable that I bought directly on Amazon. Each one of these expansion batteries is just over 6,000 watt hours, so call them 6 kilowatt hours each. But by having 6 of these all together, I technically have just about 37 kilowatt hours. And that's perfect for me because I use anywhere between 30 and 40 kilowatt hours a day on average. And ironically, that's the average for most households in America. This whole system wouldn't work without the lifeblood of the system, which is the solar input. There are 2 solar inputs, and you can do up to 5,000 watts on each one of these. Currently, I'm pulling in 8,000 watts for my solar while pushing out 9,300 watts because I have the EV charging, the Bitcoin miner running, as well as the rest of the house. Currently, I have 23 400 watt bifacial solar panels connected to the Delta Pro Ultra X, and that's charging and running everything right now. And I have all of my solar panels mounted on the patent-pending Minuteman Solar portable panel stands. This is not intended for a permanent installation. But right now, I can save a ton of money, charge my vehicle for free, and be making money by having these in a temporary configuration. I can put these down whenever I need, but for now, it's saving me a ton of money. And because it's a temporary system, there's no permits, there's no paperwork, there's no permissions you have to get, because these can be taken down at a moment's notice. And you can find these panels relatively cheap, pretty much all over online, but they do require that you purchase them in certain quantities. I'm going to have a link down below to my current favorite residential solar panel, which is actually 450 watts, and it's only about an inch taller. So it works perfectly for powering a house, or an RV, a cabin, anything like that. But one thing that nobody mentions when considering solar is the fact that you invest in this system once, just like the solar panels in the stands, and you get to take it with you forever. I just moved into my house recently, and I was able to bring this entire system with me. In fact, I even have another video about the portable panel stands where I brought them from my old house to here, and I lost no investment there. So now let's do the walkthrough. First things first is you're going to need the heart and brain of the system, which is the inverter as well as the batteries. I personally recommend that your battery capacity match the average kilowatt hours you use in a day. One thing to keep in mind is your summer months and your winter months will likely have different numbers. I always recommend that if you're in a hot climate, go to the summer months for the kilowatt hours a day, and if you're in a cold climate, go to the winter months for your kilowatt hours a day. You can input up to 450 volts and a maximum of 5,000 watts. And yes, there's a difference. Volts and amps equal watts, so you can have 100 volts and 10 amps, and it's 1,000 watts, but you can also have 10 volts and 100 amps and have 1,000 watts. So don't get that confused. There is a parameter you have to work within. Bottom line, if you use the solar panels that I recommend, put 12 of them together in series, which just means connecting panels directly to each other in one big group. And because this is a temporary setup, I'm just running my PV wires on the ground. Get yourself a 50 amp cable. This one happens to be a 1450P to SS250R. And this is the real trick of the system. The SS250R goes into a generator inlet box. Now, I was actually able to install this myself, no problem at all, and add a sub panel and other circuits to my house. But that's because I have experience doing this. If you don't have experience adding circuits like this, then definitely ask an electrician for help. That generator inlet box has a cable that comes all the way down into my main electrical panel and goes to this 50 amp breaker. This little piece of metal, about $100 from Home Depot or Lowe's, is called an interlock kit. Now, you have to get a specific one to match your electrical panel, so look that up. But this is my main breaker for my grid connection. All I do to make this work is turn this off. I have no access to grid power coming in. I flip up this metal plate and it allows me to turn over this breaker. And by doing this, I safely cut off all potential power from the grid and I run every circuit in my house, including this sub panel that I installed, which has my EV charger on it. The main benefit of doing it this way is that it's cheap. Additionally, it runs all of my circuits in my house. There is an additional option where you could run part of the circuits of your house just using what's called a transfer switch. And that is basically a sub panel where you have up to 10 circuits or so, and you switch them between being off-grid, off, and on-grid. I personally don't like them very much, but it is a good option if you just want to run part of your house and offset part of your bill. There is an optional $3,000 upgrade that you can do to the system that makes it even better, and I'll get into that in just a second. But let's break down the entire cost of the system. The Delta Pro Ultra X comes with 2 batteries, and that alone is $8,000. Not a cheap investment. But each expansion battery is $2,200, so that adds another $8,800 total for the system that I'm running. To get 24 450 watt solar panels is right around $4,000. Fit all of those panels with Minuteman solar panel stands, it's about another $3,400. I needed 200-foot solar cables. Those are about 160 each, kind of depends on where you buy them, so call it $320 to $350. The interlock system for buying the generator plug, the wiring, the interlock kit itself was all about $400 in materials. And then the permit to just put that in, because I did want to make sure I did this all perfectly fine, was $80 with my local city. Just to clarify, I did not need a permit for anything else, just the generator inlet, because it does interact with the grid, so I want to make sure that's clear. So altogether, that comes in right at about $25,500, which is not cheap. I'm not saying that it is. It's just way cheaper than a local solar company, and it was actually still pretty easy to put together because I didn't have to program any inverters, I didn't have to link any batteries together with loose wires. Everything in the EcoFlow system is designed to connect together easily so that anyone who's a novice can put it together the first time. But now I want to get into the issues of the system as well as the $3,000 upgrade that can help fix that. The $3,000 upgrade is the Smart Home Panel 3, and this is why EcoFlow is so different from Anchor, Solux, Jackery, Fluidity, and all of the other brands. And please keep in mind, this system may not be the right one for you, and I have a free solar generator comparison chart where you can look at all of the options on the table and do a head-to-head unbiased comparison because all of the specs are there. That as well will be linked down below. But the one thing that the Smart Home Panel 3 does that no other brand has figured out is how to have up to 32 circuits controlled by the Delta Pro Ultra X as well as your phone. The first major problem that I have is that part of my house is electric. I have an electric dryer as well as my EV, but then my furnace and my water heater and those other things are all gas. So just the other day while we're off grid, someone turned on the electric dryer while I was running the charging on my Rivian R1S, and the whole system shut down because we went over the 12,000 watt limit of the inverter. The second issue actually has 2 parts, and the first part pertains to EV charging. I only charge this once my house loads are covered and the Delta Pro Ultra X batteries are fully charged. Because by noon today, I was in that situation. The solar panels will stop producing power because there's nowhere for them to send it. So that's the beauty of having the Bitcoin miner and the EV is when I have extra, I can send it somewhere so that I'm getting that payback. And this also partly only works because this is a daily driver vehicle. I regularly drain it from 70% down to about 55%. So I'm only charging about that much every day. If I were draining this down to 20% and needed to recharge to 70% every day, this would not be enough. And in case you weren't aware, the reason you don't charge an EV above 70% regularly is because the lithium cells that it uses tend to wear out faster than like the Delta Pro Ultra X batteries, and so you don't want to use them really hard. You only fully charge it when you're going on a road trip. The second part of this issue is the solar itself. It's limited to 10,000 watts, which it sounds weird saying it's limited to 10,000 watts because that beats pretty much everything else on the market. But in this scenario where I have an electric dryer, an EV, and the rest of my house and so on to run, that's where the limitation comes in. If all of my house was gas for heat and I didn't have an EV, then 12,000 watts inverter and 10,000 watts of solar input is plenty. But as you can see right now, I'm outputting about 9,400 watts and I'm also inputting about 9,400 watts. In my situation, this regularly happens where I am maxing the solar input, even though I could actually be charging my EV faster if I had more capability. And that's why the Smart Home Panel 3 fixes all of these issues. And it does that because it has the ability to add up to 3 Delta Pro Ultras or Ultra X's to the Smart Home Panel 3. And that allows me to add more solar, add more battery, and add more output. Because in this case, I actually want to double how much solar I have outside, but there's no way for me to add more solar to the existing system. You can't take 2 Delta Pro Ultra X's and join them together and have it work. So that's where you would absolutely need the Smart Home Panel 3. But in addition to that, if I overload the system and I have the Smart Home Panel 3 installed, the grid power will automatically take over once again, either if my batteries are depleted or if I overload the system. Which means without even the lights flickering, I could be switching between on-grid and off-grid seamlessly, still saving tons of money. But that means it's going to cost more as well as cost more to install it. Luckily, EcoFlow has started to build out a reference network of electricians who are capable of installing Smart Home Panel 3, so at least they've figured that headache out for you. But this isn't the end-all be-all option, it's just for the medium price, for the medium effort. But if you'd like to know how to do this for half the cost of what I talked about in this video, then make sure you're subscribed, because in my upcoming videos, I'm going to show you exactly how I rebuilt my own DIY version of the Delta Pro Ultra X, and I saved over $12,000 doing it. So if this is at least your second time on the channel, make sure you subscribe. If you made it this far in the video, then obviously you got to smash the like button. And I'd like to know in the comments down below, what's the biggest thing that you need to run in your house? And if you want to see a video on how I did do a DIY grid-tied system with battery backup at my old house, definitely check out this video right here, because that shows you exactly how much money I saved, quotes that I got, how to do this yourself, and so on. But either way, I'll see you in the upcoming video on how to do this all on your own using a DIY system.
মেহতাব ডাক দাও, মেহতাব, এই যে ডাকো ডাকো, আসো আসো আসো, আসো। মেহতাব